Hi everyone. This video is designed to explain to you your behavior support plan project. During the first half of the semester, you were in Waseca Schools and you are working with a student. You are going to write a behavior support plan for that student. Now, my original intention was for you to actually implement intervention with that student. Obviously, we can't do that, but I'm still going to ask you to write that comprehensive plan for the student. So this will actually allow you to do whatever you would want to do. Any changes that you would want to make, you can make those because we won't actually be implementing them in someone else's classroom, so you're going to be able to have kind of free reign to do what you think would be most beneficial for that student related to the project. So you'll see in content that there is a module for the behavior support plan assignment. In there you have just a Word document that describes the project guidelines, what you'll need to do. So basically each one of you will be writing your own behavior support plan. You've worked as a team to gather the information about your student and come up with some intervention ideas, and that's great. From this point, as you're writing up your plan, I'd like you each to work on it independently. So you can still communicate with your team related to questions about the student, ideas, and things like that, but I want each individual person to write their own behavior support plan. So I'm not going to read through the guidelines. It's pretty short. You can go ahead and take a look at that on your own. I'm going to walk through each of the documents. I think that'll be what's most helpful. This second document, Writing Behavior Support Plans, is actually a chapter from a book that will explain how, in detail, explain how to complete the behavior support plan. So let me just open this really quickly for you. It's just about writing behavior support plans and the different components of each one, the elements of the behavior support plan, why those components are important to have. It talks about the different components that you'll need to include. And then there is a brief example at the end for a particular student. So you'll have an example of what I'm looking for. I will say that this example is an example in a book and it's fairly brief. I'm going to be looking for a bit more detail than what you see here, which you'll be able to fill in those details because you know the student. This is just a kind of a generic example. So you'll want to read through that first. Then the next thing that you'll see is a competing behavior pathways worksheet. We looked at this a little bit before we went on spring break, and you actually filled these out as a team for your students. And I gave you a little bit of feedback that day. We were going to look at them again later and haven't gotten a chance to do that yet. So you will be completing this for your student along with, so you have this is essentially your hypothesis statement, if you recall. And then this is what we ultimately want to see from the student. And this is the alternative or replacement behavior that's going to replace that problem behavior, at least in the short term, so that we can work toward this desired behavior. So you'll complete this portion of it, and then you're going to describe to me all of the strategies that you would like to implement for your student in each of these 4 areas: setting event strategies, antecedent predictor strategies, what skills you're going to teach that student, alternative skills, and then any consequence strategies, both for positive and inappropriate behaviors. Okay? So you'll complete that first, And I have this worksheet due, you'll see, on April 10th. Okay, so if you just click on this, it'll take you right to the Dropbox and you can submit your paper. I'm having you turn this in first so that I can look at it and give you feedback before you actually write your behavior support plan. So you'll get feedback on that so you know that you're in the right direction. So take that really brief feedback I gave you guys before spring break and you're going to build upon that. And then you'll turn that in by the 10th. I'll get it back to you as quickly as possible, and then you'll be able to work on your support plan. So let me show you the behavior support plan, the template that you'll fill out. So this behavior support plan aligns very closely to the behavior support plan template that you'll see in that chapter that I just showed you. I did add some additional information. So there may be there's parts, for example, the student information is not included on that example in the chapter, but this section, the student information, is all of the background information that you collected on the student while you were in your field placement. So I want background information about the student, age, grade level, classroom, anything that you had already collected, as well as the reason for the referral. You're going to list the problem behaviors, the operational definitions of the problem behaviors here, and then you're going to give me a summary of your FBA. What did you find, including your hypothesis statement or statements. So this section must have the hypothesis statement in it, along with any other information that you gathered. This is just another example of the competing pathways, just as a reminder of what you're working toward. Then you have a place to list the setting event, antecedent strategies that you may be implementing. So these are those preventative strategies that are going to make the problem behavior less likely to occur in the future. What can you do as the teacher in that classroom to change the environment so the student is less likely to engage in the problem behavior? Anything related to that, you're going to put in that section. Any skills that we're going to teach the student, whether it's some sort of communication skill to access things that that child is trying to gain through problem behavior currently, whether it's a different like social skill, academic skill, any skills that you're going to teach will go in this second section. And then lastly, you have your consequence strategies. So how are you going to respond when the problem behavior does occur? How are you going to respond when the behaviors that you're trying to teach occur? All of that should be listed here. Then this next section, steps to the intervention. This is where you're going to describe step by step how you would implement those strategies, each of those strategies. What's it going to look like? When's it going to be implemented? How is it going to be implemented? If students being reinforced, what reinforcement is going to be given? How often? All of those details that are necessary to implement an intervention effectively. And then the last part of it is monitoring and evaluation. So how are you going to evaluate whether or not your intervention was effective? How are you going to know? You're going to have to collect some information, some data to know whether problem behaviors are decreasing and appropriate behaviors are increasing. How are you going to go about doing that? So that is all of the information that I would like to see. Like I said, you have an example in the book chapter that I shared with you. You will have a little bit more detail in your plan than what was provided in the book, based on the fact that you know that student and have additional information there. We'll talk about this in our office hours today, and if you have any questions throughout as you're starting to write this, we can meet independently, individually, or we can we can talk about it again in office hours to come. So I hope you all are staying well and staying healthy and staying in at home. And I will hopefully see most of you today during my office hours at 1 o'clock.